So then you go to work on Back to the Future as an assistant sound editor?
Yes, yes. Actually, I did Buckaroo Banzai in between, and that was an interesting project because Ritchie was hired sort of as a film doctor, they had replaced the first editor on that film, and Ritchie came in, and a lot of times someone who gets hired in that role will just come in and start recutting the film. But what Ritchie had us do was take the entire film and reconstitute it into its original dailies form so he could start from scratch. And that's what we did. That was was my job, and there was another assistant. I was actually the apprentice still on that one, but a second assistant, John, I forget John's last name, but and I reconstituted the whole film. And that was quite an undertaking, and Lord knows Buckaroo Banzai has lived longer than I ever thought it would. It's become a real cult classic. Then I actually took some more sound work. I took a job as an assistant sound editor, and I worked on a film called A Soldier's Story, which was a great film directed by Norman Jewison. And I was working for this gentleman who was European, and I was like so full of piss and vinegar, and I just wanted to do a great job. And I said I'd be happy to cut some Foley, and he said, "You want to cut the Foley?" With a thick Hungarian or Czechoslovakian accent, I can't remember what it was. And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." And he's all, "Okay, I'll give you a reel of Foley." And I cut the reel of Foley, and I showed it to him, and he said, that's good. You cut the Foley." So basically, I ended up cutting the Foley on that film. Wow. And, that's just kind of the way I was, because I had this certain confidence about working with the mechanics because I had grown up in a cutting room to a certain extent, and it was very familiar to me. So my father told me something that was really, it lives with me even to this day, and it's only splicing tape. You can always put it back together. So that made me not afraid to try things and make mistakes. And so I was always just really, kind of gung-ho. And I did that film, and it was pretty crazy, but it came out really well. I remember really enjoying working on that film in sound. And after that, I took some time off, and I went to Europe for 5 months. So, kind of just like sort of get some perspective. I had kind of gone right from, sort of a community college into the business, and I didn't really fit. So I just kind of wanted to live my life a little bit. And then, I came back, and luckily enough, I found a job working for a company called Real Sound, which was out in Burbank, and it was run by two gentlemen, Chuck Campbell and Louis Edelman. And Chuck was one of the preeminent sound editors, sound designers, I guess they're called today, but sound editors of his time. And he was Steven Spielberg's sound editor, who worked, supervising sound editor, who worked on E.T. and won the Academy Award for E.T. And it's crazy because when you work at a sound company, they had a lot of films going through there. So in a period of about a year, I worked on, gosh, it must have been, easy 5 or 6 films, and there was some TV stuff in there. So I really got my, sort of chops about sound and how that whole sort of workflow, kind of went down. And but I wasn't working for Chuck directly, because he was kind of like in and out. But then he came to me one day and he said, "I'm going to do a film for Bob Zemeckis and Steven Spielberg called Back to the Future. Would you like to be my assistant on it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course." And and that's that's how Back to the Future happened. And again, that was just another thrill ride. We were invited, the sound crew was invited to Amblin at at Universal, into Steven Spielberg's offices, and we viewed a rough cut of the film, which was not such a rough cut. It was in black and white, and it didn't have any of the visual effects, but it was you could really tell what it was going to be, and what a great ride it was, and yeah, we just got into it, and it was a very intense schedule, and we worked really hard on it. But again, it's like pretty much loved every minute of it. In fact, I did love every minute of it. It was so much fun, and it was such a thrill, such a charge to be working on a film for Steven Spielberg and Bob Zemeckis. That the hours didn't even faze me. I was young and strong back then, so they really didn't faze me. And then the film comes out, and it was just it was so well received that. It's hard to describe what a pleasure that is. It's like you're rewarded for your work, and but what it ultimately ended up doing, something like $200 million domestically or something like that, I think was mind-blowing to pretty much everybody involved. It was a great time. Like I said, it was an intense schedule. We were actually mixing the film, doing the sound mix on the film, on 2 stages in 12-hour shifts. So they were essentially mixing the film around the clock to meet the schedule. So that got pretty hairy. I didn't have to work 24 hours a day, but I was working a good 12 to 16 hours a day, and that was just part of the craziness and fun of the business at that time.
Well, and there must have been so many different types of. I mean, you've got the DeLorean and all the sounds that and the flux capacitor are making, and then you've got the music part where he's, with rock and roll. I mean, there's just so many different layers to it.
Yeah, I mean, again, I was sort of low man on the totem pole, even as an assistant sound editor on that. But Chuck had brought on another sound designer to help create some of those special sounds, and I was working with a lot of people who had worked with Chuck for a long time, so it was a pretty well-oiled machine, and the music back then, and even today, there was a separate music editor, so we didn't really have much to do with that until the mixing portion, and then the mixers sort of covered that, sort of final, blending of all of the effects and the music and the Foley, the dialogue. It's a real team effort, and I think a lot of times people don't understand that, like medicine, although we're not doing brain surgery, obviously, there are specializations, especially when you get sort of to the higher levels of filmmaking and the bigger budgets. You have a specific music editing department. So the music editor, and then there will be an assistant music editor, and then there'll be a sound editor, there'll be a sound designer, and then several sound editors sometimes, dialogue, Foley, what have you, sound effects. And then it goes to the mixing stage where everyone sort of turns it over, and the mixers sort of blend everything into the beautiful thing that it's ultimately going to become. But it's a big team effort.